David Des Roches, an associate professor at the Near East South Asia Center for Security Studies at National Defense University, joins us now live from Washington, D.C. Thank you for being with us on the program, Professor. Now, what's your assessment of this F-16 deal? How will this change things for Ukraine?
Well, it's not going to change things on the battlefield immediately. It's going to take a long time for Ukraine to, first off, train pilots, and more importantly, to develop the maintenance infrastructure needed to get them out here. Additionally, these are really old airplanes. I mean, they are outranged in both radar and missiles by the top of the line Russian aircraft. I think this is more significant in that it marks an important transition. We need to be honest with ourselves. If Ukraine's going to be an independent state, it's going to be armed by the West. Eventually, it's going to have the F-16s, and it's going to have a pretty robust force because Russia's not going anywhere. I think in the short term, what we'll see is maybe within a year or so, some of the impunity that Russian attack helicopters have had. Operating behind lines, that will go away, and it will push older generation Russian fighters further back from the front lines.
Right, we did hear Zelensky say that all of Russia's neighbors are under threat if Ukraine does not prevail. How realistic are these worries of the war actually spilling over borders here?
Well, the threat is not that the war will spill over, but that Russian aggression will spill over. I mean, you led with Poland buying attack helicopters. That's Poland is driving the consensus here. They pretty much have convinced everybody in NATO with what I think is the correct view. That is, if Russia is not stopped in Ukraine, Russia will have to be stopped in Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Poland. So Poland has views this as an existential threat, and they've recapitalized their forces on Western lines. I think the Western partners are going to have to do that for Ukraine as well if Ukraine is going to remain sovereign. What we're seeing here is an old-fashioned colonial war of annexation and conquest. And if Russia prevails, the logic applies equally well to several independent countries on Russia's borders.
Right, and this F-16 deal would also have a diplomatic impact, wouldn't it? We did hear from the Russian ambassador of Denmark calling this decision an escalation. What do you think Russia's response would be on the battlefield?
That's a very interesting question. So, as I said at the start, the F-16s at the earliest wouldn't be available for about 6 months, and their role is relatively limited. So, I don't think we'll see any Russian counterpart. There'll probably be some sort of token strike for long-range missiles against cities where they think the F-16s will be based. I think Russia will try to degrade Ukraine's existing runways. The F-16 has to operate on a it can't operate on an improvised runway. So I think Russia will try to destroy the fixed infrastructure needed for it. But what we're seeing is pro forma. Every time the international community has stepped up to support Ukrainian sovereignty, Russia's raised these arguments before. So by now,
Mhm.
it's just boilerplate.
All right, David Des Roches, thank you so much for being with us here on TRT World and sharing that analysis with us.